He was the star-spangled symbol, the man out of time who never lost his way, the shield-bearer who stood tall while the world around him crumbled. We looked at Steve Rogers and saw strength, saw conviction, saw something close to perfect, but perfection has a price. And behind that shield was a man breaking quietly. He didn't bend when the rules blurred, didn't flinch when loyalty clashed with logic. He chose the mission even when the mission changed. He chose friendship even when it tore the world in two. He wore integrity like armor, but even armor cracks. And sometimes the thing we admire most is the thing that blinds us. He followed orders until he didn't, spoke truth until it cost him everything, loved fiercely but rarely openly. He saved the world more than once, but lost himself in the process. Because being right isn't the same as doing good, and doing good doesn't mean no one gets hurt. His legend was forged in war, sharpened in loss, carried by others who needed someone to believe in. But belief creates illusion, and illusion creates distance. And the more we lifted him up, the more we missed the man underneath, the one who doubted, who struggled, who longed for something simple. Still, he carried the weight. Still, he made the hard choices. Still, he stood when no one else would, not because he was flawless, but because he couldn't stop trying, because walking away never felt like an option, even when it should have been. In this video, we challenge the myth of Captain America and peel back the layers of Steve Rogers. We explore his blind loyalty, his resistance to change, his inability to let go of what no longer served him, and the pain that followed him even when he made the right choice. Because sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who suffer in silence, and sometimes being perfect means never being free. There was always something mythical about Steve Rogers, the skinny kid who became a symbol, the soldier who never gave up, the man frozen in time, untouched by corruption. He felt like a relic, even when the world moved forward. But beneath the surface, was he ever truly perfect? He carried the shield like a banner, held it higher than most could reach. And we followed him because he never seemed to stumble. But maybe we never looked close enough. Maybe we mistook rigidity for righteousness, and certainty for strength. The world changed around him while he held tight to his values, and we admired him for standing firm. But sometimes standing still can be just as dangerous. Sometimes refusing to bend is just another way of breaking what surrounds you. What if the man we called a leader was just too afraid to change? Too afraid to question the path he chose? Too loyal to ideals that couldn't survive the times? He fought for freedom, but sometimes freedom means letting go, not holding tighter. Maybe the real question isn't whether Steve was good. Maybe it's whether he ever truly saw the cost of being that good, and whether perfection was ever the goal, or just the myth we needed him to carry. Steve Rogers didn't just fight battles, he embodied an image, one that came with expectations, limitations, and a blindness to nuance. He stood tall, spoke clearly, and never wavered. But that unwavering gaze sometimes missed the cracks right in front of him. When the world turned grey, he still saw in black and white. When institutions failed, he blamed individuals. When friends crossed lines, he defended them without hesitation. His loyalty became a shield too, not just against enemies, but against truth. He couldn't see that Bucky was dangerous. He couldn't accept that Tony was hurting. He couldn't believe that maybe, just maybe, he was part of the problem. That his refusal to compromise was hurting more than helping. That leadership is not just conviction, it's awareness. In Civil War, he didn't want oversight, didn't trust accountability. He said people have agendas, but so did he. He carried his bias like armor and called it morality, and those who disagreed were labeled as wrong. Not misled, not broken, just wrong. And maybe that's the problem. He always meant well. But intention doesn't excuse impact. And a hero who never doubts himself might be the most dangerous kind of all. Beneath the uniform, there was always sadness. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet grief of a man out of place. Steve lost everything when he went into the ice. And when he woke up, nothing familiar remained, except the mission. He clung to that mission like a lifeline, because letting go meant accepting he was alone, that everyone he loved was gone, that the world no longer made sense. So he filled the silence with orders, plans, and duty, because that's all he had left. Peggy moved on, built a life without him, and he watched from a distance, frozen in time, too late to catch up. He never said it aloud, but you could see it in his eyes. That ache, that longing for something real. Something that didn't come with a uniform. He made new friends, but they were soldiers too. People who followed the same rules, the same codes, the same wars. He never really stepped outside that life, because stepping out meant starting over. And starting over meant facing the void. And maybe that's the true tragedy of Steve Rogers. Not that he died a soldier, but that he never figured out how to live as anything else. Still, there was something undeniable about him. The way he stood in front of danger without flinching. the way he spoke, and the room fell quiet, the way he made people believe, not in him, but in themselves. He carried the weight of impossible standards with grace, even when it cracked him, even when it left him alone. He never let that pain show, because the world needed strength, and he gave it without asking for anything back. He didn't lift Thor's hammer to prove anything. He lifted it because he was always worthy, even in his flaws, even in his failures. He never stopped trying to be better, never stopped believing in something higher than himself. His courage was never about brute force. It was about sacrifice, about standing when others fell, about holding the line, not because he wanted to win, but because someone had to, because he believed someone always should, and maybe that's why we followed him. Not because he was perfect, but because he made us feel like we could be. Steve's journey was never truly about the battles. It was about belief, not in symbols or governments or even war, but in people, in the power of an individual choice made in the face of overwhelming odds. He forgave when others couldn't breathe through their grief. He gave trust to those who had none left to give. Even in the middle of broken teams and fractured ideologies, he searched for unity. He believed wounds could heal, that even the deepest scars carried the potential for growth. He gave Sam the shield, not as a passing of a weapon, but as a vote of faith, a quiet declaration that someone different could carry the weight in a new way, that the face of leadership didn't have to match the past, it could redefine it, shape it, challenge it. Steve understood something most heroes forget, that being a hero is not about being remembered, it's about what you leave behind, what you inspire in others, the ripple effect of compassion that outlives the mission, that stretches past the battlefield into generations untouched by war. And maybe that's what makes him special, not the strength, not the victories, but the way he stepped aside, with grace, with trust, with hope, because he believed someone else could do better, and believed it without needing to be the one to prove it. Steve Rogers was never perfect, but maybe that's what made him unforgettable. He was flawed, human, a reflection of everything we strive to be and everything we fail to admit. He was the contradiction at the center of a world in chaos, and he stood in it without turning away. He fought for ideals that no longer fit the era. He struggled to find purpose in a world he didn't recognize, and yet he never let bitterness consume him. He never became the weapon others wanted him to be. He remained grounded, stubborn, and somehow still kind. He lost friends, made enemies, broke alliances in the name of what he thought was right, and sometimes he was wrong. But he never pretended to be more than he was. He never wore perfection like armor. He let people see the cracks, and somehow they followed him anyway. In the end, he didn't chase legacy. He chose life, a quiet one, an ordinary one, a moment of peace earned through decades of sacrifice. He didn't need applause. He didn't need to be remembered as the perfect hero. He just wanted time to breathe, to live, to love. And maybe that's what we all need to remember. That being a hero is not about being faultless. It's about trying, falling, rising again. It's about choosing others even when it hurts. It's about knowing when to fight and knowing when to let go. And in that final choice, Steve Rogers became something even greater than perfect. He became real,